We established in Part 1 that it is most important to read the data sheets on the chemicals being carried on board. They provide all the information needed in the case of an emergency. For example, when the cargo escapes from its controlled containment. But pollution control is not confined only to emergencies. MARPOL Annex 2 sets out measures to control pollution arising from accidental discharges and from operational procedures, such as tank cleaning. Bulk liquid cargoes, other than petroleum, are known as noxious liquid substances, or NLSs. The ship's certificate of fitness lists the NLSs which she is certified to carry. These substances are categorized in Annex 2 of MARPOL under Category X, Y or Z. Depending on the degree of harm they may represent to the environment, Category X being the most severe. Substances which fall outside Categories X, Y or Z are categorized as other substances, or OSs. In Part 1, we established that the ship is carrying a toxic cargo, dichlorobenzene, a corrosive cargo, sulfuric acid, a flammable cargo, isobutyl alcohol, and a reactive cargo, butyl acrylate, with inhibitor to prevent it from reacting with itself and solidifying. The toxic cargo is listed as Category X because it represents a major hazard to marine resources or human life and is considered to be a high pollutant. From the point of view of pollution, the corrosive cargo is listed as Category Y. This is considered a lesser pollutant than the toxic cargo, but has to be stowed in tanks that can achieve the same stripping level as a Category X substance. This cargo, isobutyl alcohol, is dangerous as it's flammable. But with regard to pollution, it is categorized as Z because its pollution hazard is lower. In older ships, built before 2007, less stringent stripping requirements apply than for Category X and Y substances. In the case of newer ships, all tanks and all cargoes are stripped to the same 75 litres. The final cargo, butyl acrylate, has a pollution category of Y. Typical sources of pollution arise from human error or mechanical failure, such as leaks, spillage and overflow when blowing lines. Ignoring level alarms, including high and high level alarms. And not following the rules during discharging of cargo residues after tank washing. The use of defective hoses and connections can also lead to dangerous spillage. They should be regularly inspected, and if a fault is discovered, they should be taken out of service immediately. A frequent cause of hose failure is the inadequate monitoring of moorings. Hoses can be strained or broken, leading to serious spillage if the lines are not correctly tensioned. If the spillage were to involve a toxic substance, it could poison the air, the sea, and anybody nearby who may have breathed in the vapour or touched the liquid. Corrosive substances will harm most things they touch, including humans. If the spillage involves flammable substances, they can form explosive vapours. Any leaks, spillage or overflow must be reported to the officer of the watch immediately. If discharging, the cargo pumps can be stopped by using the emergency stops. These are located in the cargo control room and at the manifold and elsewhere on deck, so discharge can be stopped instantly before notifying the officer of the watch. If loading, the jetty must be notified immediately. Valves must not be closed on board against the flow of cargo being loaded. Category X substances are considered to be such severe pollutants that no residue is permitted to enter the sea. Tanks which have carried such a cargo must be pre-washed after discharge to a shore reception facility, in accordance with the company's procedures and arrangements, or P&A manual. Tanks that held high viscosity or solidifying substances in Category Y and were not discharged at the higher temperature to ensure that the viscosity is low enough, must be subject to a pre-wash procedure with the residue water mixture discharged to a reception facility. The same procedure applies where the discharge temperature was not at least 10 degrees above melting point. A pre-wash is also required if the discharge was not carried out in accordance with the P&A manual. It is essential that the cleaning of tanks after discharge of cargo follows an approved plan. This plan must be drawn up in accordance with MARPOL regulations. When pre-washing is required, the Discharge Port Authority will provide a MARPOL control surveyor who will supervise and ensure that the tank cleaning processes are done in accordance with regulations. An early request for a MARPOL control surveyor to attend the ship must be made in all cases where Category X substances are to be discharged, or where exemptions are sought, or where there is any reason why specified unloading procedures cannot be followed. Following the completion of the required pre-washes, the control surveyor will check that the cargo record book is being kept up to date, and will endorse the entries relating to the operations he or she has supervised. Tanks which have held Category Y or Z substances can be stripped by an efficient stripping system and must be thoroughly drained so that only very small quantities of cargo below the permitted limit remain on board. The tanks can then be washed at sea as prescribed. The vapour residues can be disposed of through ventilation, provided this can be done safely. When the ship leaves port, and after any pre-washing, most of her tanks will require further washing to prevent the contamination of the next cargo. There are a number of restrictions which apply to the discharge of the washing medium. Annex 2 of MARPOL is particularly concerned with the discharge to sea of water which is contaminated by chemical cargo residue. In all cases, the requirements must be checked prior to discharging at sea. Whilst discharging washings at sea from tanks which have contained Category X, Y or Z cargoes, the ship must proceed at an appropriate speed, at least 7 knots, so that the discharge is spread over a wide area. The ship must be at least 12 miles from land and in at least 25 meters depth of water.
Yeah, this is bridge. We are already on 12 miles from the nearest land. We can start the cleaning.
Okay then, it is confirmed that we are more than 12 nautical miles from land and the depth of water is 30 meters. Thank you.
The discharge must be from below the waterline, and the rate should ensure adequate mixing in the ship's wake. In the Antarctic, that is the sea area below latitude 60 degrees south, any discharge into the sea of NLS or mixtures containing such substances are prohibited.
Attention all hands, attention all hands, attention all hands. Cargo spell on deck, cargo spell on deck, cargo track, 10-4. Cargo spell on deck.
The prevention of pollution in an emergency centres around the escape of NLS cargo from safe containment. Each cargo will have specific requirements and procedures to be applied in an emergency. These must be strictly followed, as the response action will vary depending on the nature of the cargo and the volume of spill. Where appropriate and safe to do so, some spills can be soaked up with absorbent materials and disposed of in accordance with regulations. But with cargoes such as corrosives, the safest option may be to wash down the affected areas with large volumes of water.
Algeciras traffic, this is Joe Bitula.
In all cases, any spill or pollution incident taking place whilst at sea must be reported to the relevant coastal authorities.
We had a pipeline leakage, we have a spill in the water of 2 cubic meters.
For this reason, every ship of 150 gross tons and above, which is certified to carry NLS in bulk, must have on board a Shipboard Marine Pollution Emergency Plan, SMPEP. As a minimum, this must include the procedure to be followed when reporting a pollution incident, as required in Article 8 and Protocol 1 of MARPOL, the list of authorities or persons to be contacted, a detailed description of the action to be taken to reduce or control the discharge, and the procedures and point of contact on the ship for coordinating shipboard action with national and local authorities in combating the pollution. In summary, whilst the categories of substances can be found in the IBC Code, Chapters 17 and 18, it is Annex 2 of MARPOL that categorises the NLSs as categories X, Y and Z, in accordance with the severity of their pollution potential. Annex 2 also contains specific requirements for these cargoes regarding the operational procedures relating to them. The residues of Category X substances must not be discharged at sea. They must be pre-washed and the effluent must be discharged into shore-based facilities provided for this purpose. Category Y and Z substances are considered less severely polluting, but their discharge is still controlled by Annex 2.